fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery with your hosts, Eric Shapiro, David North Martino, John Copenhaver, and Al Warren. On 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Mr. Dave Martino is here, seeing his way through that Canadian smoke.
I know, you're sending it all our way, Al.
It's my fault. It's my fault. You know, it's how I work. You know, let's get that. Blowing smoke up your ass.
That's right.
I said that to someone, they got upset.
The sun was red, I don't know about the moon.
The moon is gone.
Yeah.
We sold it for cheese.
That's right.
Okay, well, let's move on. Today, our guest today, we've got someone that's got a new documentary film out, or coming out. We'll talk about all the release dates and where you can get it. Now, it's called Americonned, and we've got the director, Sean Claffey. So thank you for being here, Sean.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sean, what's going on here? You've got this movie out, or coming out. Tell us what the basic premise, or what it is about that you want people to see in this movie.
Well, basically, it's a film about income inequality, the fall of the middle class, and most importantly, the erosion of the path to the middle class in America. But it's not just in America. It's really a worldwide story happening all over.
What made you decide to do this?
Well, so I was approached by Dave Pedersen, who was the producer of Super Size Me, and Jeff Mann, also another producer, which they came with an idea about doing a film about income inequality. And coming from a immigrant family, you know, my grandparents immigrated from Ireland in the 20s, and you know, when they came out of abject poverty and then came to the United States and kind of worked as servants until you know, the New Deal was put in effect, the labor protections were put in effect, and they were able to ascend rapidly into the working class and then the middle class in America, which you know, was a great benefit to our family. But then during my lifetime, I've slowly watched it, and now more quickly have watched the fall of the middle class. And you know, we've basically seen a redistribution of about $50 trillion from the bottom 90% of Americans to the top 1%. That's not sustainable. And that's, you know, it's really an existential threat to democracy here.
What do you attribute that to? Is it the system of capitalism itself, or do you think it's the, let's say, unregulated or less regulated corporations, or what do you apply it to?
Well, we had, you know, capitalism during, you know, after the Depression and all the way through 1975, and people did great. But what has happened is about 1968 to 70, Milton Friedman, his doctrine of basically dismantling the New Deal and the protections on the middle class, the protections of the workers, his true belief, almost a religious belief, that the only purpose of a corporation is for its profits. It's not for social building, you know, a good middle class, not for workers, not for the environment, not for anything. And that idea was adopted through a lot of the business schools, and certainly picked up by the Koch brothers, who instituted a plan that, you know, basically funded all these lobbyists and installed all the Supreme Court judges and the federal judges through the Federal Society, and really has taken away the power of the voting people. So it was slow at first, you know, and then Reagan really put it into high gear by crushing the air traffic controllers, and then it was basically open season on all the workers' protections and the unions in the country.
Yeah, I was going to say that the Reagan era was the first big crush on the middle class, as far as I see it.
Yeah, the plan started about 10, 12 years before, but once they got Reagan in office, then it really exploded.
I have to wonder, but what's the end game for corporations or the high end money? What's the end game? Because they've got so much now, and by continuing to do what they do, like, after the COVID and then all the prices go up, but yet, chains of grocery stores are making record profits. So it's not like they're giving up anything. So what's the answer to that? I mean, because I don't understand where they want to take it, because they want a revolution, or they just want people to be homeless. Like what is the end game of the rich, so to speak?
Several of the experts in the film, we also follow families that are going through this, but several of the experts in the film, like Kurt Anderson, states that basically they're killing the golden goose. Nick Hanauer, who's a billionaire himself, basically states that capitalism won't work if no one has any money, right? Because there's no one to buy the stuff. And that there's sort of this almost hysterical or hallucinatory idea that I'm not going to pay my employees enough to buy my stuff, but every other CEO has to pay their employees enough to buy my stuff. That doesn't make any sense at all. And in the long term, they're gonna crash it all. But really, the CEOs now, the majority of the large businesses, they didn't found those companies, right? So they're in it for the short-term quarterly profits. And once they achieve those profits for 8 quarters or 12 quarters, they bail out with a massive package. They're making $30 million a year. Maybe they bail out with $150 million at the end because they hit their numbers or more. So they don't care. They're not thinking long term. They're thinking about what can I get now? And the old thing from Wall Street, the movie, and it was like, what do you want more? Well, I think it's even worse than that now. I think they want it all.
Well, what's the point if the country falls apart and everyone's in a bad state? Like, I just don't see a happy ending here.
No, and one thing I do say often is, what are they going to do? They're going to live in a bunker in New Zealand and hope their security team doesn't turn on them? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But, psychologically, I think our producer Jeff Mann says this often, and I didn't necessarily agree with him in the beginning, but I think I agree with him now, that it's almost a hoarding psychological issue. So it's an obsessive thing that it's not good for the country or society, and in the end, it probably won't be good for them either. But it's sort of this obsession to hoard wealth that is really at play here. And then some of those CEOs set that tone, and then the other ones just want to match it.
So when you set out to do this film, and it's taken you some time, how did you go about it, and how were people when you were going out making the film and interviewing?
We grabbed a couple cameras, threw it in the back of my station wagon. We drove across country and did a bunch of interviews with like Nick Hanauer, April Sims, who's a labor leader up there, and we just started, right? And then as we were going, we started meeting more people, and we shot in 23 states. We drove 32,000 miles crisscrossing because, if you're filming with a family, you have to go back several times to see the changes that are happening. But the eye-opening thing was that everyone we spoke to, and not just on camera, but, just traveling so much, understood that there's a problem, but doesn't understand why. And then when they've been suffering for so long, for decades, basically, especially rural America, whose wages are half of what they were in 1975, they get angry, and then they're easily manipulated. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing these people who have been angry, they've been promised the world by every politician, and now they're pissed. And they're like, you know what? Every week I work 40, 50, 60 hours, and I'm worse off at the end of the week than I was at the beginning of the week. How about we just burn it all, not all of them, but some of them, burn it all down. It's really troubling.
You hope the movie does.
Well, making the movie, we ran into a bunch of people that are making massive changes and are organizing and getting together and fighting back. And that really gives me a lot of hope, especially with the younger generation. We're following Chris Smalls, and he basically, him and like a 7-person team went up against the most powerful employer and at the time the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, and was able to do the biggest unionization in 75 years in Staten Island, New York, where they unionized the warehouse there. And basically 9,000 people unionized all at once without a backing union, just grassroots from scratch. Bezos spent $25 million to defeat them, had them arrested, all sorts of stuff, and they still won. So if 7 people who had nothing, were able to do that, imagine if we all come together and demand it be fairer, what could happen. And we did this before in this country. In the 20s, it was just the Depression and incredible inequality, income inequality and wealth inequality. And they flipped that, and they were able to build the greatest middle class in the world. So I have a lot of hope.
Well, you mentioned back in 1975, and I remember back in the 1980s when I had it was basically friends of family and stuff like that, mm-hmm. and family friends who were factory workers. And back then, we had a lot of factories in this country with good jobs. Do you think that bringing back manufacturing to the United States is part of the answer?
I think that's part of it. I think there is so much money here that there is no reason why anyone that works hard shouldn't have a good life. There is absolutely no reason. This raising wages kills jobs is a complete fallacy. It is a negotiating tactic to negotiate against all employees all at once. If no one has any money, who's going to buy the stuff, right? That's what Nick Hanauer says in our film. And it's really, when I was young, you could work in a hardware store, not own the hardware store, work in a hardware store, have a house that you own and a car and go on vacation. You could be a cashier and get a pension. And now that, that could happen right now. Any of, especially Bezos, he could raise his wages to $30 an hour tomorrow. He'd still be one of the richest men in the world. Well, we did the math. He wouldn't be, I think he's like 3 or 4 right now. Maybe he'd be 8. There'll be zero change in his lifestyle. And all the other companies would have to match. And the change that would bring, we're seeing these suicide rates go up, the drug addiction go up. These are all, direct results of people just giving up. It's sad.
Well, why do you think Bezos, I don't want to just pick on him because it could be.
No, and we shouldn't.
No,
he's just one of them.
No, yeah, he's just one. That's sort of what I mean. But people like him who actually started out as an average person, let's just say, working, and has created something that's done really well, and it's been very successful, and it's made him a lot of money. I always wonder, but it's not just him. There's several of these billionaire people that have made it, but they seem to get really tight when they get up at the top. They're not really, it's almost like they don't remember where they come from.
Yeah, like the owner of Starbucks, who grew up not far from me in the projects in Brooklyn.
Right.
And I think they start believing their PR, right? That they are so great and so better than everyone else, and then they stop viewing regular people as worthy. And that's tragic. It's almost a narcissism, or maybe it is a narcissism. I think that word's used too much, but they didn't do it.
Yeah.
It was, in the beginning, it was probably a couple dozen people or, a few people that helped them. I'm sure they all worked very, very hard. And I get that, and they should be rewarded, but not at the cost of, the collapsing the middle class. Or seeing authoritarianism rise here. It's not, we're seeing the regurgitation of messaging that was heard in the 30s, that it's the refugees to blame. It's depending on where you are, the people coming across the border that's to blame. It's it's people that don't look like me that's to blame. It's the different religions to blame. That's very dangerous rhetoric that's going around. And that's not just, on dark web pages. I mean, that's in national news.
Yeah. You see it in political parties now. It's nothing that is hidden. It's very open. I just don't quite understand, why it goes that way. Well, I mean, I guess I understand it, but I just think it's crazy. So you said you had hope and that, you see things, good things happening and stuff. What do you think the answer is? Help us out here.
Yeah. So the only answer is that you have to organize. So the only way to combat immense wealth is by immense numbers. And we are still able to vote here in this country. So, we need to vote out everyone that is not helping build up the middle class, and through messaging show what's really going on. When you can have Amazon has 2,500 lobbyists. I mean, when you have that many lobbyists, it's insane. We have to get rid of these politicians that are taking the political money. I mean, that needs to be our focus. Also, getting people elected on a local and state levels. What we're seeing in Minnesota right now is amazing, and in Michigan, they've achieved incredible things by just in the last few months, by getting the right people in place there and getting the message out so people understand. It was troubling to me that people didn't understand what was going on. They knew that everything was wrong, that something was wrong, but they weren't sure why. So that's my job, and people like me need to get that out there, and everyone else, and spreading the message.
Well, there's so much attention given to things that don't really matter. Like even the politicians, all they talk about, the don't say gay, or there's always some sort of thing that they're talking about, and it's not about how things are running. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not.
So do you know why? Do you know why they're talking about those specific things? So the Koch brothers, not just the Koch brothers, right? Fund these think tanks, right? Like the Heritage Foundation or Cato or these different ones that do polling, and they find out what are wedge issues, and how do they, and how to ask that question the right way to make it a wedge issue. So whether it's the school stuff where, they're teaching your kids things that are going to, go against your beliefs, or, so they start banning all the books. So then all of a sudden that becomes, a major wedge issue. Or they're trying to make the children pedophiles. Well, that's a regurgitation of what they were talking about in Germany, right? Where the Jewish people were doing bad things to the children, right? They know how to, because they're not offering anything for the people, right? So they have to make these issues so that the people turn on each other. And it's planned. It's like they're like kind of like an advertising agency that goes through this marketing plan, and then they disseminate these talking points on a daily or weekly basis to all the politicians.
But you end up getting people that vote against probably what would be better for them, just because they don't want a drag queen reading to their kids or reading in a library or something. Like they talk about, these things that really aren't affecting their life, period. It wouldn't be part of their life if it wasn't something they weren't told.
Yeah, it's manufactured. Is someone wearing a dress, drinking a beer you don't like already, and you're obsessing about that's in the news cycle for how long? I mean, that's all on purpose.
Yeah.
And, so the abortion, it used to be abortion and guns, right? That was their go-tos. And now they won the abortion thing, so they have to reinvent other things. And this is the scariest part. I mean, you're seeing this not just in this country, but also in Hungary, in Poland, certainly in Russia, that they're trying to abuse your children. They're trying to make your children gay. They're pedophiles. So we need to enact these laws that'll just temporarily take away your freedoms. But because your children are in danger, you'll be willing to do that, and we'll promise we'll give those back. Poland just lost they lost the free judicial system a couple of years ago, and they're proposing a law now that the current administration can deny anyone from running for office it chooses. Hungary lost their judicial system and their free press. Israel is on the verge of losing their judicial system. The Federal Society has changed our Supreme Court for probably 10, 20 years.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good foresight. Did you get any blowback yourself, like when you were out there doing this kind of work and trying to put together the film and talking to people? Did you get any negative response?
Yeah, we had the cops called on us a bunch of times, especially when we were in Orlando filming. There was this apartment complex that was filled with single moms, and they would just abuse them, you know. So the landlords would call the cops on me all the time. But then I would just talk to the cops and I'd tell them what the landlord's doing. And they were like, what? And I turned their opinion against the landlords. And one of the guys was like abusive to the women. And he said, well, if you see him, call us up and we'll arrest him. I find that when I talk to people in a calm manner, and explain, they get it.
Yeah. Most people are, you know, unless they're extreme or they're, you know. So do you think you'll get, when this comes out, do you think you're going to get some media, you know, Tucker Carlson coming after you?
That would be great. I would love to talk to Tucker or Sean Hannity. That would be amazing. It's really hard to argue against building up the middle class or, you know, making the middle class number one or the path to the middle class number one. It's almost impossible. How do you argue against that? You can stutter.
Yeah.
You know, I'm for I'm basically for democracy, the middle class, and the path to the middle class for every hardworking American. And if you're not for that, or I don't know what to say. And I've trust me, I've talked to many conservative people, you know, and you know they even accept. I mean, there are some that are, you know, you're just never going to get to, right? It's almost like a religious fanaticism. For most people, they know that something's wrong, and you start telling them why, and you just see their eye in the glint, and they're like, they start to put it together. And anyone that watches the film, you can't unsee this film, you know. And it's not just about experts. We follow all these families that are suffering, and then some that triumph, you know. You know, it doesn't end. It's not like a depressive movie. It's an inspirational movie about a depressing subject. And in the end, you know, you really do come away with wanting to do something to make change.
Yeah, but how do we know you're not Antifa?
I don't know. I don't really even know what they are. You know,
it's a false flag. This is Alex Jones is going to come after you.
Yeah, it's all right. Alex Jones is a pretty awful person. Yeah. A good friend of mine had their kids that I grew up with in Sandy Hook, and he's an evil person.
Yeah.
He went after them, caused them to have to move like 6 times, sending his nut jobs after them after their kid was killed.
Pretty crazy, you know, that guy. So now where are people going to be able to see this? Let's talk about the release date and places and what can you tell us about that?
Sure. So theatrically it's being released on June 9th, Friday, from in New York and LA. You can go to our website at www.americonned.com and get all the information on how to see it. It'll be released for streaming on June 13th in North America, and it'll be in many different places: Apple TV, iTunes, Tubi, YouTube, and many others. And you can just go to the website and click and choose the one you like the best and see it. It's available right now for pre-order on Apple and iTunes to buy for $12, and I think that to rent it, it's going to be around $5 or something.
Okay. Well, we'll have all of that up on the website as well, so people can find it easily. Again, the movie Americonned. The director's with us. That's Sean Claffey. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Sean.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Yeah. Good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.